Hi, I'm Republican Tom Barr. Are you ready to raise the bar in Missouri? I'm running to serve the residents of House District 137. Washington-style politics is creeping into Jefferson City, causing some representatives to place personal agendas ahead of the collective good for Missouri. As your representative, I'll be a voice of we the people, not special interests, and I'll never let personal ambition dictate my actions. With Joe Biden and his liberal allies destroying our economy, it's vital that we elect leaders who understand what it takes to create jobs and not just spend other people's money. As a longtime small business owner, I'll work to trim the fat from Missouri government and ensure that it works for the people, not the other way around. If you're ready for a higher standard of leadership, I'm asking for your vote in the August 2nd Republican primary.
Hey, good morning, Rogersville. Thanks for joining us again here on K-ROG. We've got another in our series of candidate interviews today. This is my friend, Tom Barr.
Hey, Will.
How you doing?
Good. Glad to be here.
I got to know you when you were the circuit clerk there in Greene County. And
Absolutely.
I was still willing to go to court back then.
I'm just completing my second term up there.
Yeah. Well, good. But you've now decided to jump into another realm.
Yes,
so tell us about that, Tom.
Sure. As I said, I've been the circuit clerk in Greene County for 8 years, 2 terms, and I just felt like, even though it's not a term-limited position, I felt like I'm for term limits, and so I self-imposed. I think 8 years in any one political office is enough, and I wanted to let someone else build upon the things that we started. And as the redistricting process worked itself through, we looked and saw that the 137th, which is currently represented by Representative John Black, which is Webster and Eastern Greene, that because population, Webster would get their own state representative, and therefore Representative Black would be staying solely in Webster County. So the district became open. It's a combination of both Representative Black's and also parts of Representative Craig Fischel's district. So it starts up at Fair Grove and comes all the way down here to Rogersville, to the Webster Christian County line. It's all contained in Greene County. Then heading west, takes in all the subdivisions south of Highway 60, and then once we get over to the James River Freeway, south of Republic Road, all the way almost, it includes National. So it's, and there is just a tiny sliver that goes all the way down to, if you know where Steinert's Greenhouse is, that portion right there is the end of the district. And so I think what they did, so Greene County got an 8th district, so we added one. I think they looked and put everything together, and voila, here's 137. So, so it was an open seat. My background is that I went to college up in Kansas City. Maybe I should back up and say that I was born in New York. At age 16, we moved to my mother's hometown of Sikeston, Missouri. That's where I got my conservative values, and spent 2 years in Sikeston. Went to Rockhurst College up in Kansas City. And while I was there, I was a poli-sci major and economics minor. My economics professor was a gentleman by the name of Jim LePage, and Jim was appointed by then Governor Teasdale, this was back in the late 70s, as the Director of Revenue. So I thought, hey, having been a political science kid, that I'd go down there and work for him, and I sort of did, but I actually, they put me in what's called, what was then the correspondence section. So here's a 22-year-old kid going in, and I had, I think, 25 women who taught me the ropes. So, yes. But part of that, so I was there in Jefferson City for 5 years. And the last year or so, I was in their legislative office, which allowed me to do fiscal notes. Those are monetary projections on what the impact, if the Department of Revenue was proposing a bill, and how much that would be a fiscal impact upon the citizens and upon the department. So I was able, while the session was going on, I was able to go over there every day. I just really like it. Even today, the last 8 years, I've been active in the Missouri Circuit Clerks Association. This year, I'm the president of the Missouri Circuit Clerks Association. It's a statewide network of all the elected and non-elected circuit clerks. So over the last 8 years, we would go up. We would testify on bills that impacted the judiciary. Interesting tidbit, even though I'm an elected county official, I'm actually a state employee. Because the judiciary, as you know,
right.
They are all state employed.
Yep.
So so sometimes I will go to a county office holders meeting, and they will be talking about health insurance and things like that, and I just get out some of the work. I'm interested in what's going on, but it doesn't affect me or the employees in the circuit clerk's office. Anyway, but back to, I'm sorry, there's a little tangent there.
That's okay. It's good to get to know you.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
I worked in the revenue department. I had always been, I still am, entrepreneur at heart. Back in, when I was 12, I had a newspaper out. I used to, when I lived in New York, on weekends, back then the New York Times was probably this thick, and they used to print sections of it 3 or 4 days ahead of time. So I would go up to the neighborhood, we called it the candy store, it was a luncheonette. It's a place you could go in and have lunch or breakfast, but they sold the New York Times on Sundays, and I would go in there very early, 6 or 7 o'clock, and I would just stuff those in right and left, and so, I like to earn money and also to do something that will benefit people as well in businesses. So it was during my 5th year up in Jefferson City that I read an article in the the News Tribune up in Jefferson City. And it was about the postmaster in Jefferson City was retiring, and he was starting a first-class pre-sort mailing service. And real simple terms. Back then, the Postal Service, there wasn't any automation then. It was all manual things. The program was, if you had at least 500 pieces of mail, you would, and you put it in zip code order, bundled it, and brought it to them in that order, they would grant you a 3-cent savings on every piece. Now that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but I did talk to the postmaster, and I said, well, maybe I could go back to Kansas City where I went to school, and he said, you'd probably be eaten alive. There's 4 or 5 other mailing services. But he said, I don't believe there are any in Southwest Missouri, in Springfield or Greene County. And at the time, I had been to Greene County, Springfield area, 3 times in my life, and knew 3 people, honest. And so it sounded like an idea that you could, the market entry wasn't bad at all, because it was all manual. And so I was 26 years old, and as I say, loaded up the truck, but to loaded up the car.
Yeah, but you moved to the hillbilly world instead of
God's country. As I always say, I have a friend who's a circuit clerk up in central Missouri, and I always, when I ever talk to him, I said, well, I'm calling from God's country,
that's right.
Because this area of Missouri is just incredible.
Yeah, it's a great place to be.
So I started, and I had a 200, about the size of your studio here.
Yeah. Pretty small. It looks bigger on TV than it really is.
But so it was. So I had a desk and a phone, a corded phone back then.
Sure.
And yellow pages.
Yep.
Who'd have thunk? You know,
yeah.
that's back then. That's all you had. There was no internet.
Yeah.
So I just started making calls, and my first client was the Women's Clinic, which was in the professional building at the time, which is Missouri State now has as part of their campus. And there's a gentleman by the name of George Hirschberger. He gave me a chance. Mm-hmm. So think about this. Here's a young kid, not involved in the community at all, comes and says, "Hey, I want to take your mail before it goes to the post office." And and people's mail then and now is sacred to them.
Sure.
But they trusted me, and so we under-promised and over-delivered. And he, because he trusted me and found out that we did what we would say we would do, he gave me a referral. So my next one I remember was a small insurance firm, 20 pieces a day, but it added up.
Sure.
Next, we talked and we got Farrell Duncan Clinic. And so they had, on Thursdays, they did their billings, and then they had, back then, 5,000 pieces. And I'll tell you a little story, which is also something I've lived by in my entire business life and the 8 years I've been the clerk. So during the first week, or the second week, I can't recall, our deadline to be at the post office was at 6:30 every night. Well, little 6:30, 6:45, we'll take the mail. But when the night we had a lot of mail from the clinic, we didn't make it on time. And I guess the Postal Service at the time was, and they had their rules and regulations, and so they said, well, take your mail back, we're not accepting it, and put tomorrow's date on it. So we did. We ran the next day's date on the back of the mail, represented it. About 3 p.m, I get a phone call from the administrator at the clinic. It says, "Tom, yes, sir. You have any issues last night?" I said, "Well, yes, sir, but how'd you know?" He said, "Because I've got a room full of ladies here who usually answer the phones about insurance and billing, and they didn't get one call." So the moral of that story is, and he said to me, he said, "Son," which he said, "it's always better for you to call the client than the client to call you."
That's true.
And that is something I have lived by since that time.
Yeah, we learned that in the law business too. And I think we're the only lawyers that know that. But we always tried to do that. So, new district, you're running over, it's the 137th, your website, Barr, B-A-R-R,
Right.
formmissouri.com.
Yeah.
We'll try to get that out there so you can click on that if you want. But when you get to Jeff City, what are your, let's look at the future now. What kind of plans do we have?
Well, having my background in business, creating hundreds of jobs over those 28 years that I owned the mailing service, I understand what it takes to make those tough decisions. As you know, Will, as a lawyer, but you're a business guy too. You're using your own money, and if you make the wrong decision, it's costly.
Sure it is.
And so what I want to do is the people's money, I will treat that just like it's my own, as far as making sure that the right decisions are made, that we do not waste the money. But I want to go up there and work on workforce development. I'm a big proponent of of training at OTC, those type of, because not everyone goes to college.
Right.
But we want to keep those people, we want to keep those young adults in the area. We want them to have good paying jobs.
Now wait a minute. I'm an OTC student, and so
well, that's great. Well, that's well good. Well, we want to keep you too.
No, I completed culinary.
Culinary 101. That's right. Yeah, no, that's
so, yeah.
But you know,
it's a great asset to have in the community.
They actually had a program, I understand, this year. In fact, this summer, I think they had 40 hours of that you could go into certain seminars completely free to see. I think it was 40 hours to see if you like that before. So try before you buy.
That's a great idea.
Yes, that's good. So certainly with this whole economic crisis, I'm also a big proponent of returning people's income taxes back to them. Mm-hmm. I know the governor has proposed a cut. I'm fully supportive of that. I know he's also called for, is going to call for a special session of the current legislature. If they don't get it done, and I'm so honored, I'm going to work on that. That'll be my first thing to do, is because we need to make sure taxes are low, so we can expand the economy. I'm very proud. The last few days, I was notified that I have been endorsed by the Missouri Chamber Political Action Committee. They feel that with my background, and I feel the same way, that I can go and insist in creating jobs, good jobs in Missouri.
Awesome. Sounds good, Tom. Anything else you want to let the folks know before we sign this thing off?
Just that I appreciate their consideration. And one thing I will say, I am committed. I'm a listener. So it's not about me. I'm wanting to be the conduit to bring their hopes and dreams up to Jefferson City. And I will be available. I will have town hall meetings. I don't know all the answers. I was with the Greene County Farm Bureau this past Monday, and I told them, I said, I don't have the answer. I don't have all the answers. And I came in start to pretend to know exactly. All I know is they work extremely hard. But so I said, if I am lucky enough to get to Jefferson City, I'm going to be calling them, just like I'll be calling you on questions about,
Sure.
How does it affect? Because, again, as a representative, you're representing the people.
Absolutely.
Not yourself. And I will tell you, just like on the video you played, I'm not going up there to run for another higher office. State representative, if I'm so honored, is where I will be, and I will try my best to serve the people.
All right. Thanks for coming on,
Hey,
Tom.
thank you so much, Will. Appreciate it.
On here. So, keep watching K-ROG and keep a lookout for Tom. Thanks for watching.